Tom walked in the front door of his suburban home mid-morning on Wednesday. He hadn't been there since the previous Sunday. All he wanted to do was pick up a few things and leave again. He had expected his wife, Peggy, to be gone to work. Tom went to the kitchen to make a cup of coffee and noticed the handcuffs and the strip of duct tape still lying on the counter where he had left them. The dish towel was still on the floor where he had tossed it after wiping his face. The camcorder still sat on the tripod next to the kitchen table. The chair he had broken and knocked over was still lying on the floor. Instead of coffee, he opened the refrigerator and got a bottle of Diet Coke. "Where the hell have you been?" Peggy asked angrily as she entered the kitchen. Tom didn't look at her or answer. He started past her to go to the bedroom to pack some clothes and she grabbed his arm. "I asked you a question," she said angrily. Tom stopped and turned to look at her, the woman he had married 7 years earlier. The woman he loved, but now, the woman who had devastated him. "Let go of me," he replied, softly. Peg looked at him. His face held no expression. Tom's eyes appeared dull and lifeless. She let go of his arm and let him pass. Peg picked up the handcuffs, tape, and the dish towel, then walked over to the trash can and unceremoniously dropped them in. She walked to the tripod and unscrewed the mounting bracket, placing the camcorder on the table, then collapsed the tripod, laying it next to it. Peggy walked to the bedroom. Tom had a large suitcase open on the bed and was packing. "What are you doing, Tom?" "I'm packing," he replied, as he continued. "Another business trip?" she asked snidely. "No." "Where are you going then?" Tom stopped and looked at her. His expression was still blank. "What difference does that make? You're my husband. I have a right to know." "Peg, you gave up that right last Sunday afternoon." Tom added a few more items, then closed the bag. He picked it up and carried it to the living room, placed it near the door, then walked to the den. Peggy followed him. He put some papers from the desk in his briefcase and closed it, then packed his laptop and the power cord in his computer bag. Tom walked to the kitchen table and picked up the camcorder. He opened it, finding the SD card still in place. "Is this what you recorded Sunday?" Peggy smiled, "A souvenir of your payback." "Very thoughtful." "Thanks." Tom was still expressionless. "Tom, damn it. Talk to me," she shouted. Tom looked at her. His face flushed. "Like you did to me?" "Why are you leaving?" she asked. "Peg, sit at the table with me." Tom opened his computer bag and put his laptop on the table, then sat in front of it. He motioned for Peggy to sit next to him. Once she sat, he put the SD card in the slot. "Let's watch this. Then we'll talk." Tom started the recording. The view on the recording showed a chair sitting back from the kitchen table on the right and the empty kitchen table on the left. "Welcome home, baby. Come in the kitchen, I have that surprise I promised you on the phone." Tom entered the scene smiling. Peggy walked to him wearing a short thin robe. Her hair and makeup were immaculate and her legs and feet were bare. She was holding handcuffs and smiling. "Sit in the chair." Tom sat, grinning at her. Peggy walked behind the chair and squatted to put the cuffs on him. Her robe fell open, revealing nothing underneath. She put one wrist in the cuff, threaded the chain through the back of the chair, then secured the other wrist. Peggy stepped out of the picture, then returned a moment later and placed a strip of duct tape over his mouth. His smile was apparent even with the duct tape in place. She stepped in front of him and dropped the robe to the floor. Tom's eyes widened in appreciation of the sight before him. "Ready for your surprise?" she asked, smiling. Tom nodded. "We're ready in here," she called out. A moment later, footsteps could be heard walking toward them. Tom turned his head toward the sound. A man stepped into the room wearing Tom's robe. Tom's smile was replaced by a look of shock. "Honey, you remember Joey from my work, don't you?" Peggy walked to Joey and untied the belt on the robe, then slipped it off his shoulders, tossing it in Tom's lap. Joey was nude underneath the robe. She knelt in front of Joey and took his semi-erect cock in her mouth. "Oh fuck, that feels good," Joey moaned. Peggy removed it from her mouth and looked at Tom. Tastes good too, Joey. Are you watching, Tom? I wouldn't want you to miss any of this, she asked with an evil grin on her face. Tom stopped the tape and looked at Peggy. Why? You know exactly why. Peggy, I have no fucking idea what you're talking about. Tom was still expressionless. Before we got married, I told you I'd do it. Tom was puzzled. You're making no sense. What was this all about? Before we were married, I told you that if you ever cheated on me, I'd get a revenge fuck and do it right in front of you. You remember that, don't you? That's what this is all about? Yep, your payback. I promised and I delivered, she said very matter-of-factly. You think I cheated on you? I know you cheated on me, asshole. Okay, I'll bite. Peggy, when did I cheat on you? Don't try and pull that crap on me. You know exactly when, where, and who. Tom took out the SD card and put it in his bag. He closed the laptop and slid it in the bag, then zipped it closed. He turned facing Peggy directly. Either tell me what the hell you're talking about or I'm walking out right now. Tom was frustrated. Fine, act innocent. While you were on this so-called business trip last week, Jerry's wife, Jill, called me. She told me you and Jerry spent the week shacked up with a couple of whores. Jill told you that? She did. What evidence did she give you? Quit the poor victim crap, Tom. You know what you did. So, you revenge fucked me based on a phone call? From someone I trust. Yes, I did. With only her word? No actual evidence? I didn't need any. Peg, you handcuffed me, sucked and fucked a man right in front of me. Belittled me, then spit his cum in my face, all based on what someone told you? Payback, that's exactly what I did. Tom shook his head, still puzzled. You didn't tell me why. You didn't talk to me about it. You decided I was guilty and deserved punishment, then carried it out without any proof whatsoever? Yes, so now we're even. Even? Yes, even. Not that it matters now, but there are a couple of things I'd like to say. Go ahead, I'm listening. I was at a conference all last week. Jerry wasn't even there. He was fired from the group 2 months ago for having an affair with a secretary in the office, and I haven't seen or heard from him since he left. I was a speaker on the panel at the conference. I sat at a table, on stage, from 7 a.m. until 10 p.m. every day of the conference. The entire week was recorded on video. After the meetings, the panel met daily until midnight to review and plan the next day. I have multiple witnesses as to my whereabouts. I never left the hotel until going to the airport after it was over. You're denying it then? Completely. I don't believe you. Obviously. I have proof of where I was and what I was doing the entire time, and you do have a phone call from someone who wasn't even there as your proof. Sounds like a pretty crappy case in my book. But I believe her. What we believe doesn't make it fact. I believed I was married to the most wonderful, loving woman in the world. What I learned Sunday is that I'm married to a vicious, spiteful woman who thinks so little of me that she both physically and emotionally degraded me with no actual evidence of any wrongdoing. Peggy didn't respond. I'm leaving now. You'll hear from my attorney in the next few days. I'm not divorcing you. That's what this was all about. We're even now. Peggy, I didn't cheat on you. Haven't you been listening? I'm not an idiot. Of course I've been listening. You still think what you did was justified? I do. Then we have nothing further to discuss. Just for the hell of it, call Jill and see what her evidence was. I'd really like to know. Actually, it doesn't really matter now. Without another word, Tom left the house. He went to his hotel room and burned the video to 3 DVDs. Tom had already scheduled an appointment with his attorney and went there where he began the divorce process. The reason for filing would be adultery. He gave a copy of the DVD to his attorney. The prenuptial agreement would be in effect and solid with the DVD evidence. Tom would serve the papers to Peggy himself when filed. The attorney made suggestions about financial matters that should be taken care of immediately, and Tom saw to those right after leaving the attorney's office. His cell phone had been turned to silent mode, and when he got to his hotel room he checked it. The first call from Peggy had been about 5 minutes after he left, then nothing for about 2 hours. The calls after that were about every 5 minutes. He listened to only one voicemail. The first after the 2-hour break. "Oh my God, Tom. I finally got through to Jill. She was drunk. Please call me. I made a mistake. Please, call me." Tom deleted all her calls and voicemails without listening, and then deleted her text messages and emails. The calls, texts, and emails continued. He screened the numbers as the calls came. Tom also got calls from Peggy's father, mother, and sister. He returned the call from Sean, her father. "Hi Sean, it's Tom. I know who the fuck it is. You aren't the only one who can read. What the hell did you do to my daughter?" "I didn't do anything to her other than not answer her calls." "Oh bullshit, she's hysterical. What the hell's going on?" "Sean, if you want to know what happened, you'll have to talk to Peggy. I'm talking to you, goddammit." He was angry. "You're wasting your time. Talk to her." Tom remained calm and pleasant to him. "Did you fuck around on her or something? Talk to Peggy." "You son of a bitch, I should come over there and kick your ass." "Sean, listen to me. If you want to find out what happened, you'll have to get that from Peggy. I won't discuss it with you or Mary or anyone else. Talk to Peggy." "You prick. You did fuck around, didn't you? Goodbye, Sean." Tom ended the call. Sean called back almost immediately and Tom ignored it. That was followed quickly by a call from Mary, her mother. He deleted their voicemails, then went out to dinner and returned to his room for the night. Thursday morning he got a new cell phone but kept the old one too. He went to his office and took an extended leave of absence. He also gave them his new number but asked them not to share it. After driving to the far side of town, he rented a small furnished apartment and signed a 6-month lease. Tom went to the grocery for some food and household supplies. By the end of the day he had set up housekeeping. Friday morning his attorney called. He met his attorney at the courthouse, signed the documents, and after filing he was given a copy for Peggy. Her copy didn't require signature, but the attorney told him to be sure that there was an impartial witness that she had been served. Tom called Peggy and they arranged a lunch meeting at a restaurant they often visited. When Peggy arrived, Tom was already waiting at a quiet table in the back. She was dressed and dolled up to the nines. Peggy looked good. When she arrived he stood. Peggy hugged him, and when she tried to kiss him he presented only his cheek. This wasn't what Peggy was hoping for, and that was apparent in her expression. She sat facing him at the table. "Tom, I made a mistake. I want us to put this behind us and move forward." "I agree. It's time to move forward." Tom waved for the server. It was Lynn. They had known her for a long time. "What can I get for you to drink?" she asked, smiling. "2 Diet Cokes," Peggy responded. "Lynn, stay for a minute," Tom requested. He reached beside him and picked up the divorce petition, then handed it to Peggy. "Peggy, this is a petition for divorce. Lynn is my witness that you've been served." "Thanks, Lynn." Peggy paled as she looked at the papers. Lynn went to get their drinks. "Tom, you said you wanted to put this behind us and move forward." "That's exactly what I'm doing. I'm moving forward." "But Tom, I made a mistake." "This isn't what I meant. Peggy, we've been married over 7 years. Until Sunday, they were the most wonderful years of my life. I loved you like I've never loved anyone and probably never will again. Don't throw that away, Tom. We have a wonderful marriage. Had, not have. You destroyed both our marriage and my love last Sunday. I made a mistake. Can't you see that? Let me tell you what I see when I look at you or when I close my eyes. I see the woman that I loved sucking another man's cock 6 inches in front of my face. I see her telling me how good it tastes. I see her being fucked by him on the table in front of me and telling me how she loves his big cock and how much better a lover he is than I am. I see her lover take his hand from her pussy then smear her juices all over my face. I hear her begging him to fuck her like a man should, not like I always did. I see her take him in her mouth again then showing me the cum on her tongue. I see her rip the duct tape off my mouth and try to kiss me with her mouth still full of his load. I see her spit it in my face when I refused the kiss then laughing with him about it. That's what I see now, Peggy. Not the woman I cherished. You killed her that day. But Tom, it was all a mistake. No, it was very intentional. The reason you did it was a mistake, not the act. I told you if you cheated on me I would have a revenge fuck in front of you. You knew what would happen and even agreed to it. Yes, I did, knowing it would never come to that. What did I tell you would happen if you cheated on me? Peggy looked down at the table. You said you'd divorce me. Did you agree to that? Yes, but I didn't cheat on you. Tom handed her a DVD. This is for you. It's a copy of your not cheating romp with Big Dick Joey. Tom, that wasn't cheating. It was revenge. Lynn returned with their drinks and took their lunch orders. Peggy, sex outside the marriage is adultery, and unless both parties agreed to it, that makes it cheating. We can work this out, Tom. We'll go to counseling. No, Peg, we can't. You showed me a side of you that destroyed the woman I loved. You murdered her just as surely as if you'd cut her heart out. But you didn't, instead you ripped my heart out. I don't want a divorce. I'll fight you. You showed me another side of you on Sunday. I have another side too. You don't want to see it. What other side? The side when I become as vicious, uncaring, and spiteful as you were on Sunday. I won't use mistake as an excuse. I'll take full responsibility for what I do. You aren't like that and you know it. Funny, I thought the same thing about you. Damn it, Tom. It was a mistake. No. It was an intentional act of revenge. What have you told your parents? I told them we had a spat and that we'd work it out. A spat over what? Peggy looked down at the table and didn't reply. Over what, Peggy? I told them you were having an affair. You never told them the truth? No. Why? They wouldn't understand. Understand what? They wouldn't understand how it was a mistake. Maybe it's finally sinking in. Tom, I know what I did to you was wrong. I based it on judgment rather than fact. I know I hurt you deeply, but we can get past this. We can put our marriage back together. We can put this behind us. We'll put the marriage behind us, all right. The woman I loved doesn't exist anymore. I'll fight you every step of the way. I'm saving our marriage. There's nothing to save. It's over. Don't force me to bring out my other side. You won't like it. You're bluffing. Don't push it, Peggy. Get an attorney. Have them review the petition. Have them contact my lawyer if you have issues. You'll be single and can have all the Joey you want in 90 days. It has nothing to do with Joey. Sorry, that was rude of me. My apologies. I'm not giving you up. Peg, you already did. The settlement is fair. Take it and move on. Not a chance in hell. Lynn brought their meal. Tom handed her his charge card. She left, then returned a moment later with the check to sign. Tom signed, then stood. He had never touched his food. Enjoy your lunch, Peggy. I lost my appetite last Sunday when you spit on me. Tom walked away and drove to his apartment. On Tuesday, Peggy saw her lawyer for the first time. She was a hard charger that had been recommended by a friend. Have a seat, Mrs. Givens, I'm Ronnie Savage. How may I help you? My husband's trying to divorce me. Has he served you papers? Last Friday. May I see the papers? Peggy handed her the papers. Roni glanced at the first page. He's citing adultery, is that true? No, it was a misunderstanding. Did you have sex with someone other than your husband? Yes, but it was a mistake. Did your husband agree to your having sex with the other individual? Not specifically that person, but he agreed to my having revenge sex if he cheated on me. So your husband cheated on you and you had revenge sex? Well, yes and no. Mrs. Gibbons, can you please clear this up for me? I did have revenge sex, but afterward I found out he hadn't cheated on me. Your husband didn't cheat, but you had revenge sex anyway? Yes. Mrs. Gibbons, that's called adultery. But I thought he had cheated. What evidence did you have? A friend told me he did it. But apparently, your friend was mistaken? Yes, finally, someone that sees it was a mistake. Mrs. Gibbons, based on what you've told me, I'm seeing a woman who had revenge sex on her husband based on hearsay evidence. Does he have proof you had sex with the other person? Yes, I handcuffed him to a chair and made him watch. Then it's his word against yours. Is there any actual evidence? I recorded it all on video. Do you have a copy of the video? Peggy handed her the DVD that Tom had given her on Friday. May I watch this? Peggy nodded. Roni put the DVD in the player, then after watching just a few minutes she stopped it. I'll need to watch the entire thing, but I can do that later. Let me go over the petition first. She began reading. After several minutes and flipping through multiple pages, Roni looked up. I see that you signed a prenup, and from a brief look it seems pretty solid when it comes to adultery. If he'll change the complaint to irreconcilable differences, we can avoid that part of it. That, I suspect, will be a difficult task. Even with the prenup, he's offering you considerably more than the law requires. Without the prenup, you can likely get a considerably larger cash settlement. I don't want a cash settlement or a divorce. I want my husband back. Have you told him that? Yes, he won't even consider it. Contested divorces can get very expensive for everyone involved. If we request counseling, it can't hurt. Let's do that then. We can ask for counseling and let him know that if he refuses, we'll fight for everything. Okay. Do you have any dirt on your husband? You mean like criminal stuff? Anything. He's as squeaky clean as you get. Has he ever hit you or threatened you? He's never even raised his voice to me. I'll go through the paperwork with a fine-tooth comb, watch the video and get back with you in a day or two. Does he have a copy of this DVD? Peggy nodded. It was Wednesday when Roni called her. Mrs. Gibbons, he has a pretty ironclad case. The video you recorded is very damaging and you don't want any judges EEing that. Let's begin as we discussed. We'll propose 6 weeks of couples counseling. Whatever it takes, I want my husband back. 2 days later, Tom's lawyer called him and asked him to stop by. He went to the office that afternoon. Tom, they've requested 6 weeks of couples counseling. And if I refuse? They'll pull out all the stops and fight us. I'm against it. What are your thoughts? She's hired Roni Savage. She's one of the best. Better than you? I'm the best. Are you willing to fight? Tooth and nail, if I have to. Then let's just say no and see what happens. Keep me posted. That evening, Tom called Peggy. Peggy, I refused the counseling. I told you that if you fight me on this, you'll see another side of me that you won't like. Why are you being like this? Just drop this crazy divorce and come home. Peg, that's not going to happen. This is your last chance to get off easy. I won't be calling you again. I'm fighting you, Tom. I don't want a divorce. Have it your way. Tom ended the call. The following Monday, a countersuit was filed by Peggy. The grounds were irreconcilable differences. She asked for everything. 2 days later, the local school board and the school where Peggy worked were served with papers regarding fraternization violations between two of their married teachers, Peggy Givens and Joseph Carr. Included with the packet were graphic photos of the two engaged as sex acts. An emergency meeting of the school board was convened, behind closed doors, and both were fired that day. The same day, Joey's wife received a DVD in the mail along with names and phone numbers of those in the video. She called Tom after watching the video. "Hello, this is Tom Givens. This is Tammy Carr, Joey's wife. Did you send me this DVD?" "Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, but I thought you had a right to know." "When was it taken?" "A week ago Sunday at my house." "Are you the one in the chair?" "I am." "And the video is real?" "Completely. It's uncut." "The woman is your wife?" "For the moment. I've filed for divorce. That's all I needed to know. Sorry to bother you." Tammy ended the call. Tammy's next call was to a divorce lawyer. The following day, Joey called Peggy and read her the riot act for exposing him with her act of revenge and costing him his job and probably his marriage. Even after losing her job and the call from Joey, Peggy stuck to her guns. When another week had passed and Tom hadn't heard from his attorney, Tom implemented his next step. Peggy's parents and sister received a copy of the DVD in the mail. After just a very short introduction into the video, Peggy was being questioned and chastised by them. Tom's old phone rang off the hook. He answered the call from her sister. "How could you, Tom? Peggy loves you. Mandy, she has a strange way of showing it. It was a revenge fuck, for Christ's sake." "She still didn't tell you the truth then?" "What is the truth, damn it?" "Mandy, I didn't have an affair. She got a phone call from a friend who said I did. She took that as gospel, and with no evidence at all this was her revenge?" "Tom, Peggy's not that stupid." "Fine, ask her yourself. Let her know that if she'll let the divorce go through and quit fighting it, this will be the end of it. If she continues, it's only the beginning. Can't you work it out? Did you watch the DVD?" "Just the beginning, that's all I could stomach." "Watch the whole thing, then ask yourself if your husband would be willing to try and reconcile." "Will you do that?" "I will, but I still think you should at least try to work it out. Mandy, you've known me since we were kids. You know I'm not a bad guy. Watch the DVD." "Okay, I will." Mandy hung up the phone. About an hour later, she called back. "Oh, Tom, I'm so sorry. I understand now, but I still need to talk to Peggy. Let her know if she'll quit fighting the divorce, this'll end. If she fights me, it's only going to get worse. I'll tell her." Mandy went to see Peggy in person, and after getting the confirmation that Tom was telling the truth, she delivered his warning. Peggy was adamant in her refusal. Mandy then went and told her parents what Peggy had done and about Tom's insistence that she drop her countersuit. Peggy's parents visited her that evening and got a copy of both suits. Sean had a family friend who was an attorney review the filings and the prenup. His recommendation was that Peggy do exactly what Tom said and let it go quietly to the divorce court. Peggy still refused to concede. After another week with no word from his attorney, Tom took the next step. Peggy taught Sunday school at the same church her parents attended. Every member of the ladies' auxiliary and the church officers received a flyer in the mail that showed pictures of Peggy having sex with a man other than her husband. The caption read, "Should this woman be teaching your children?" On Sunday, Peggy's parents were treated more like lepers than parishioners. After the service, the pastor took them aside for a private talk and told them why. He also gave them a letter for Peggy letting her know that her services would no longer be required or even welcomed. A copy of the flyer was attached. When they gave it to Peggy, she cried but still refused to drop her countersuit. Peggy told her attorney about what Tom had done. Telling and showing her family was not criminal. It showed clearly on the DVD where Peggy told Tom that she made the recording for him. Since it was his property, he could share it with anyone he wished of legal age. The flyers were sent anonymously, so without considerable investigation they could not be traced to Tom. Roni recommended she drop her countersuit. Peggy's family begged her to stop this. It was now affecting their lives. Sean called Tom with his concerns. Tom repeated his demand to Sean. Still, Peggy persisted. A few days later, Peggy's neighbors and all of their friends received similar flyers, captioned with only Peggy's name and contact information. Peggy's phone and email exploded with nasty calls and messages. Garbage was thrown on her car, driveway, and lawn. Tom waited another week before posting to her social media accounts. It began with innuendo, then progressed to photographs with blackouts strategically placed in all the required places. Peggy received an email from a porn site a few days later thanking her for her submission. When a news crew showed up at her door, she finally called her attorney and dropped the countersuit. She requested a meeting between she and Tom. Tom agreed as long as it was in his attorney's office. They met a few days later. Peggy looked like a shadow of her former self. She had lost weight, and from her appearance she had lost a lot of sleep too. "Peggy," Tom said as he sat across the table from her, "I dropped the countersuit. You win." "No, Peggy, I lost. I lost the woman that I loved. I lost my marriage. I lost everything that was important to me. You do have a side I'd never seen. I'm sorry you had to see that." "Tom, I don't know what to say. I can't show my face anywhere. I'm going to have to move away to even find a job. I can't stay here either. Everyone we knew treats me like a leper too. We both lost everything, didn't we?" "Yes, Peg, we did." Tom's eyes were on the verge of tears. "I know it's too late now, but was there anything I could have done to rectify what I did? Besides figuring how to turn back time?" "Yes, besides that." "I don't think so, Peggy." Tom stood to leave. Peggy stood and held out her arms for one last hug. Tears were streaming down her cheeks. Tom took a step toward her, then stopped. Tears began running down his cheeks. "I can't, Peggy. I'd feel like I was cheating on the woman I loved." He stood looking at her for a moment, then turned and walked toward the door. As his hand touched the door knob, he turned to her again. "There was one thing that might have helped." "What, Tom?" "Just once, you could have said I'm sorry, just once." Tom walked out of the office and out of her life.